Kyle, what would you say if I showed up to this taping like dripped out in diamonds?
Swag.
That's not what you're supposed to say. You're supposed to say it'd be gauche.
I don't even know what gauche means.
All right.
What does that mean? Why are you bringing this up?
Regardless, we're going to be talking about wealth and perception of wealth in the workplace.
Let's get into it. Kayla, before we get into it,
Ew, right into the mic. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. It's just allergies. Every spring I get them, but it's just something you have to deal with. Nothing to be done.
Well, that's actually not true.
Well, what am I supposed to do besides just sneezing through the podcast and making everyone miserable?
Please, let's not. You don't have to suffer through the spring allergy season every year if you know what's causing your allergies. That's why you should get an allergy blood test, which can help rule in or rule out allergies. And if your provider orders a regional respiratory profile, it will help ensure no allergen slips through the cracks with a research-backed collection of local pollen allergens and the most common indoor allergens all from one blood draw.
Okay, that sounds a little better than sneezing through the podcast. You've convinced me, Kayla.
That's right. So ask your primary care provider about getting tested with your local respiratory allergy profile today. And thanks to our friends over at Allergy Insider for this PSA. Okay, before we get into wealth and status in the workplace, just a little plug. At the end of this episode, we're going to be doing a segment we're calling Per My Last Policy.
Per My Last Policy, one of my favorite segments.
It is fun. And we're going to talk about policies we wish we could enact in the workplace. So stay tuned for that. All right, now let's talk about wealth and status and the workplace.
Okay. Did we just come into a lot of money I don't know about, Kayla?
No, we did not. No, the reason why we're talking about this is actually because of an Interview Magazine article that came out probably 2 or so months ago now, which was about young Wall Street guys. And it was like the finest boys on Wall Street or something kind of gross.
Yeah,
and
literally.
it was like pictures of them in their like Celine suits and their Hermes ties and their Rolexes and
like in a steakhouse.
Yeah.
Going to the gym.
It was really a little like bizarre.
Yeah.
And they were all under 25.
Yeah.
So that's an important element. And it got a lot of attention online. And there were a lot of people saying a lot of things about this article. One of the things that caught my eye that I thought was really illuminating is people saying that they had also or spent time in this industry in finance. And they were like, their teammates are going to flame them forever.
I know.
Because, first of all, obviously it's like gaudy and kind of icky.
I would pay so much money to be in Goldman the next day.
Isn't it so?
When they walk in?
Yes.
That would have been so electric.
Oh my God. I feel actually bad for them. Like,
I know.
They're going to get reamed.
Yeah.
But the main takeaway was like, it doesn't matter if you have the money at that age. It is very, very frowned upon to like show up flaunting the wealth when you're like a first year analyst.
Yeah.
Even though this is a high like income industry.
Right. No one's surprised you have the money.
Right.
You work in IB.
Right. It's like you have to earn the right to flaunt your wealth. Mm-hmm. And when I saw that, I was like, it's such an interesting, like unspoken social contract that is probably that specifically is unique to maybe the finance and banking industry, but there are so many in many industries that are talking about what's the social contract about wealth and how to flaunt it, how to show it, and how not to. And so that's kind of why we're going to talk about this. I guess, yeah. What are your thoughts?
I was going to say, Tita says, sounds like we should do an episode about this.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting topic. One, there's having wealth, and then there's flaunting it, and then there's flaunting it in a magazine.
Yeah.
Like that they went like 2 levels too deep. Like if you just pulled up in that, I'd be like, oh, okay, like maybe you're flaunting a little bit. That's kind of dope. To like sit down and have someone take photos of it knowing it's like that.
For like a weird, like one-word response interview roundup.
It was tough. One of them said his personal hell was going to a ticketed event for SantaCon, and that I do agree with.
But the other one said
the other one was
mediocrity.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Amen.
Bro, you're 24.
Amen, brother. Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's tough. And listen, they've been roasted enough online. Like I don't need to continue to contribute to it.
But it's an interesting topic. Yeah. So we want to break this down in terms of kind of perception of wealth at each stage of your career. Yep. Early career, mid-career, and late career. So let's start with early career. Kayla, you worked around banking, banking. Like, did you feel the pressure to do an interview magazine dressed in Louis Vuitton or Gucci?
No, I did not. Okay. Dressed in Louis Vuitton is actually extremely funny, but it's fine. I will push past it.
I meant Louis Vuitton.
Oh, I see.
Not Louis Vuitton, not the red bottoms.
No,
Come on.
All right,
I
you do know.
I got the juice.
You got the juice. Okay, no. I mean, so yeah, the first, I interned in sales and trading, and I did 2 years in equity research, which is not IB, which is not investment banking. So it's a slightly different culture. But I would say it was a really interesting line. Like, I didn't super care about what I was wearing. I'm wearing like old jeans and like a ratty H&M like cardigan right now. And that wasn't like drastically different, but there was a strict dress code. There were strict expectations about what you should wear. And I remember like I was in like whatever my little like outfit. I had like 3 or 4 outfits for the first few weeks, and then I was like, I gotta up my game. And my first paycheck at Goldman, I spent like most of it, or maybe all of it, or maybe more than all of it. I don't really remember.
I went into severe levels of debt after my first paycheck
to go to Theory, which is an expensive but like kind of classy, I would say, like not super gaudy, like workwear.
It's like a normal place.
Yeah. And I think, it was like, it wasn't flaunting anything. It was super expensive, but it was just like high quality wear. It showed that I was serious, but it wasn't like, I didn't have like the labels like plastered all over.
Yeah.
So I didn't really experience like the negative impact of like showing up like dripped out.
Okay. Interesting.
But I guess I was like never really thinking about it.
My first uniform we had to wear was either a green T-shirt that said College Possible on it that I had to wear every day.
Yep.
Or a gray shirt that had the America logo.
Right.
T-shirt, 100% cotton.
Yeah.
So I had felt no pressure. In fact, I could not dress nicely.
Right.
I was working with high schoolers though. Like, if I came with Gucci, they'd have been like, what the fuck is going on with this guy?
You talk about, I mean, that would have been worse than walking into Goldman after that interview.
Literally.
Like, you would have been flamed.
Interview would have been writing a piece about me. So I did not feel that pressure early. And I think also, like, I didn't grow up around that type of like flashy wealth. And so it's always felt very like far away from me. Not that I think it's actually pretty cool. I just feel like I'm not that person.
Yeah.
And I think early in my career, I dressed like that. Like, I kept wearing just T-shirts.
Sure.
Maybe out of habit of like, and I was also just very like routinized. Like, I own like 3 pairs of pants. It's just like, I'm going to wear one of those 3. I don't need more. And I think that is fine early in your career. I do think now, like more middle of career, I've been like, I probably should like dress a little nicer. Like, it feels like that is the right thing to do. I like fashion a little more. I like looking better, but I also think there's like probably a career advantage. But definitely early in my career, I just wasn't around that world at all.
Yeah, so let me ask you this. Like, if you were to show up to your College Possible job and one of your coworkers had like something very obviously expensive on their person as like what they were wearing, or like a new like Louis Vuitton bag or something, like how would you react to that?
Like, personally, I would have been fine. Like, I don't really care. And it's like, okay, like, that's how you like to spend your money. That's cool.
But also, like, what everyone was making.
Exactly.
And it was $12,000. Like, it's clearly not their money.
Exactly. There is then an element of like, okay, how did you get that bag?
Yeah.
And again, like, okay, your family has money. That's fine. I think it's like the pretending you earned it that is off-putting if you didn't. And so I think if you're like a Nepo baby, just lean into being a Nepo baby.
Sure.
Sure, I wish I was a Nepo baby. And so I think it's this like pretending you have it or you earned it when you didn't. And I think that's the risk early in your career. Similar to the guys in Interview Magazine, who I'm sure earn their own money. They probably also, I think most people in banking probably come from pretty wealthy families too. But like, it's just like you don't flaunt it at that stage. So I think that is where the College Possible tension would have been, is like, okay, we're serving like middle to low income kids. Like, that's the demographic, and we're making no money. Like, it's not meant to be flashy or like that. So there probably would have been some pushback just on the perception. Like, it probably wasn't an effective message to be sending in that arena.
Well, I think it's kind of the same early career everywhere. Like, even when it's not as aggressive as like you haven't earned the right to flaunt your Rolex, even though you have the money for it because I'm signing your checks.
Yeah.
But it's like, if you're early career, chances are you're lowest on the totem pole. You're making the lowest you're probably ever going to make. Like, you probably don't have a lot of like flex income, disposable income. So like, what are you doing with a designer bag? And to me, there's like this interesting like wealth creation due to your career versus like wealth, like inheritance or like, I don't know, adoption, that you didn't necessarily like get from your job, that especially early in your career just feels a little like dicey. Like, if you're showing up with a very like clear perception of high wealth and you're a, you know, first year marketing analyst making $45,000, it's like, I don't know that that's giving a signal that you want it to give.
Well, so it's really interesting there. It does give a signal, and what the research around wealth that's like you can perceive shows is that if you do see that, you do perceive those people to be higher status and more competent, but you perceive them to be less warm and trustworthy, which is really interesting. There's this balance. So like, I think to your point, like particularly if you're early in your career, you want to be perceived as like collaborative, and like sometimes that can backfire where you actually, it's like, oh, like they're better than me. Like I can't collaborate with them. And so I just thought that was really interesting. I think that is the trade-off, which is you appear more competent, but you appear less warm, and you should be kind of aware of that trade-off.
That's interesting because I've never personally associated like obvious displays of wealth with competence. But I think that's like an interesting perception.
I mean, I think there's like the orange Lamborghini and everyone's like, okay, come on. But then there's like the not like a designer outfit. I'm like, oh, okay, like you did something
tailored,
right.
like it probably means you're like presenting yourself in a way that's more put together.
Exactly.
Like it's, you know, you're getting styled, and so you're like wearing stuff that like fits your body type, and maybe it's like your steamed shirt or something. I don't know. Whatever. I gotta
get a shirt steamer.
Yeah.
Any shirt steamer out here, sponsor the show.
I gotta say, you should probably have a steamer.
Yeah.
Regardless.
No, we do.
You steam your own shirts.
I struggle to use it, but yeah.
It's fair.
Yeah, the listeners, call out my wrinkles when you see them on the podcast. Okay, any other like early career notes?
Yeah, I would say there's one exception to like obvious displays of wealth in early career being seen as like a mismatch, which is fashion.
Okay.
So like my little sister has worked in fashion since she started college, and like she's worked at designer places, and like the expectation is that you're looking like that.
It'd be hilarious. You walk into Gucci and they're like in an H&M sweatshirt, and you're like, wait, am I in the right place here?
Yeah, like Nina's not wearing what I'm wearing right now. And she hasn't. And she's like, 10 years into her fashion career now. And so it's like for those individuals where you're like trying to convince other people to basically buy into the store and spend thousands of dollars and try to like look different and be better or be someone else, like that is like aspirational. And then at that point, it's probably much better to like have these obvious displays of wealth, even if you don't necessarily have them yourself.
I think that's a great call out. And I would also say like early in your career, I don't think there's an expectation that you need all of that stuff from anyone. And so like, you're honestly like a little more free. Like that's probably the time to like not have to worry about like, do I get a Rolex or not? Do I wear super nice clothes or not? Like that isn't really the expectation. And so I would hate for people to have to like fall into that trap in like the Henry category, high earner, not rich yet. And they're chasing this lifestyle in which like they actually haven't built the foundational wealth, and like they don't need to be on that in that rat race, at least at that point in their career. I think there's a lot more slack when it comes to how you're showing up early in your career. Like if you're dedicated, you're working hard, I think the rest will take care of itself.
Yeah. So I think when we're thinking through, okay, early career, first few years, like there is that mismatch between how you're presenting and how you're showing up and what you're making. That kind of changes as you move into mid-career.
Yeah.
And I think that potentially like presenting more put together, presenting more well off is more of a like career strategy than it is in the early stages.
Yeah.
because that's where I start to be like, oh, you must be pretty good at your job. Like you're, 10 years in, whatever, like, and you're presenting very well. You're a salesperson. Like you must be selling a lot, like you're probably
must be
doing
slinging sass over there. Yeah.
Right. Like, oh, it must be a good product because like you look very put together.
Yeah.
And I think the like perception of wealth there could actually be a benefit, although not in every case. And we'll be right back after this. Okay, back to the show.
Yeah, I think, I agree. And we talked about this in a previous episode about like, what is professional dress?
Yeah.
And like, it just, there's so many different contexts in which to evaluate that. And I think most times it leads to like a bad place. Like, I think just let people wear what they want to wear as long as it's appropriate, and it's just a better outcome for everyone. But one thing I remember in that episode that I found really interesting is there is, like, let's take tattoos, for example. I think this has changed more in recent times, but let's pretend like 10 years ago, and probably still today a little bit. There's like a penalty for tattoo. Like some people really don't like them. And like you're perceived as like maybe less competent. And I have tattoos. I'm saying this as someone who has them and loves them. But then if someone gets to know you and like finds out you are actually competent, there's like this boost. It's like, oh, you did the thing you weren't supposed to do, and you're good. Like that's even cooler. It's like the CEO who like wears just like sweatpants and a sweatshirt. You're like, oh, you're not supposed to do that, but you can because you're that senior, and like that's cool. There's like this like added bonus, which I just thought was really interesting. Like there's the rules. If you break the rules, you're initially at risk, but if you are that dude, like sometimes there's actually like a cool bonus you get.
Yeah, I feel like it's the whole point here is like understanding the expectations and then like subverting them appropriately.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, when we were thinking about like later in the career, what I wrote here is like Zuck in the hoodie. Yeah. Like, it's expected that CEOs and executives are like super like in the tailored suits all the time and the like designer labels because they make so much money because they're so successful. And then Zuck shows up in a like, $1,000 t-shirt and you're like, that's a bro. Like I love him.
Oh, he's in flip-flops?
Yeah, like that's so cool. Yeah. Like he must be so good. And it's the same thing with like SPF or whatever. If like not to bring back that guy, but it was like, oh my God, he's not even paying attention to me and I'm a VC and like he's playing a video game in the middle of this pitch. Like he must be so good. Yeah,
if you're perceived as competent, that's like a bonus.
Yeah.
If that was like some random no-name founder, they'd have been like,
what the hell, man?
F this guy. I think you said it well. Like you should understand the expectations, and then if you do want to do your own thing, you could subvert them appropriately and hopefully get a bonus because of that subversion. Mid-career, kind of where we are now, I do, like I said earlier, I think I'm like thinking about this stuff more, honestly. Like
how you present yourself.
I've been on Shopbop pretty frequently.
I gotta admit. Know what that is.
It's just it's an easy way. Amazon bought them. It's like an easy way to buy like decently nice clothes.
Sure. Okay.
And then the return policy is fantastic. Shout out to Shopbop. I'd be returning too. And so like I've tried to up my wardrobe game. Admittedly, it's like a little uncomfortable because I'm just like, it's a little unnatural for me. I'm trying to get better at that. The other thing that I've struggled with personally is like, I'm not like a fancy dinner type of guy. And like, I didn't grow up ever like going to those. I don't even know, like, does the fork go on the right or the left? Like, I'm just like an idiot when it comes to that stuff. So sometimes I'm like a little maybe uncomfortable when it's like really nice. Same with like really expensive, like a bottle of wine or something. Like I feel out of place. And there is this, not worry that it's career limiting because I don't necessarily think it's like that big of a deal, but like there's these arenas in which you only really go into if you have a lot of money. And sometimes you find yourself in those when you don't have money. And I'm like, like I don't know the rules here, like the secret rules of this world. And just something I'm like realizing more.
Yeah, and I think it makes a lot of sense what you're saying. Like
you're like, you are an idiot, Kyle.
No, not that part, but like these there are unwritten rules in all of these different societies.
Yeah.
And like once you feel like you've gotten a handle on it and you start to like, continue to grow in your career, and then all of a sudden you're accessing these societies that you're like, I think I'm doing something wrong, but I don't know why. And I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to like get this client to like buy into my whole shtick, but I'm not getting something right. Like that's freaky. Like that's probably really unsettling. And I think it's like, again, these are unwritten, they're unspoken. They're the only way that you learn them is by being in these spaces and like watching other people interact. And so your first time at a fancy dinner, you're like, what's this tiny little fork? And they're like, oh, it's for the oysters. You're like, well, shit.
What's an oyster? Yeah.
Like, I've been using it for the salad, like the 2 times, like whatever. Do you know what I mean, though? It's like, if you don't know, it's like very obvious.
Yeah. I'm just like using it to eat an individual fry. I'm like, oh, the fry fork, you mean? Yes. I love the fry fork.
But that's a really, and like, I don't actually have any like tips there. Like, there's not like, oh, go to etiquette school. Cause I think that's kind of lame too.
I mean, for me, this is what works for me. And it just goes back. I think a lot of this is just about authenticity.
Yeah.
There's not like a right way, wrong way. It's just like, don't try to be someone you're not.
Yeah.
Is like just leaning, like, even if you're like uncomfortable, you don't know, like kind of like admitting that or like asking. I think a lot of people are afraid of, but it's like, I'm just curious. Like, oh, like I literally, like, what is this fork for? I've never seen that. Like, maybe there's like a little embarrassment. I don't really have that. I think it's when you like clam up and you just are visibly uncomfortable and like aren't doing anything about it. That's probably, people are like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So I think the more you can just like embrace and lean into who you are, that just has benefits for your whole life.
I agree, but I also think it's important to note that like being mid career does not mean all of a sudden you're going to like fancy ass dinners and you have to figure out
for
how
yourself,
to use forks. Like, I think it's all about understanding the culture that you're in.
Totally.
And that's like not just a wealth flaunting thing or expectation subversion thing. It's like, just like, that's reality.
Yeah.
You've been doing it forever.
It's a good point. And like, obviously Morning Brew Inc. is going to have a very different culture when it comes to all of this stuff than Goldman Sachs, for example. So understanding the sandbox that you're playing in and coming with the right toys in this analogy is really good advice.
Yeah, I would like if I showed up at any stage in my career to Morning Brew with like crazy outfit, like really expensive bag, I think everyone would be like, what the fuck? What are you doing?
Maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
You know?
But then like, this is where I'm like, I don't want to tell people if they like that stuff to not do it. I think like there might be an initial reaction. My hope would be like, but Kaila, she's awesome.
Right.
Like that's just,
it's an initial thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like it's definitely an initial thing, aka bias, which we should all try to reduce and like actually just get to know the person. But it's not saying that there's none of this like, heuristics people use to judge you instantly. I do think that is true, and understanding that will have career benefits.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's talk about late career. We're not in there yet, but I'm talking about bosses, CEOs, like people running companies. What has your reaction been to how you've seen them like flaunt wealth? Like late career, do you think there's different set of expectations on you, and are new things okay? Yeah,
I mean, I can only speak to my experience, but I think we kind of already covered a little bit of this, which is you expect higher ups to have some level of wealth.
Yeah.
Because they've spent their whole career, they've grown in their career, they're like responsible for maybe running a company. You expect that they're compensated for that. And if they're like, I need help paying for the bus to get home, you're like, what's going on? Like, it shows like a weird, it's not a lack of judgment, but it's like, what has happened here? Because my expectation is that if you're,
like,
you're 30,
like, aren't you making a lot of money? Like, what's going on?
And you're presenting kind of like a slob, or you're presenting kind of like not even not well off. But again, there's the Zuckerbergs of the world. There's the former head of Patagonia, you know, like.
And I think we need to delineate though, like Mark Zuckerberg, like everyone knows him. He's literally a billionaire. So like he could do whatever he wants. Like we know the number, and we know he's got infinite money and like 200 cows in Hawaii. I think if you're just like the average, like normal CEO that like no one really knows, but like you're doing something right, or a founder, I think that's at the level that most people, their boss is at that level. And I think there it's like, I don't know. I personally feel like there is a career benefit to working for someone who makes obviously more money than you and is like just generally like wealthier. Because like the trickle down effect to you is like they're gonna have to pay you something. They don't even know those low numbers. They're like, no, you can't live off $1 million. Here's 10 million. Like,
how much could a banana cost? $10?
Like, it's like if Mitt Romney was your boss, you'd be like, I'd have to pay you, right? 100 million at least, right?
I actually think that was a bad example.
Yeah, that is true. He's probably not. He's famous for cutting a lot of people. Anyway, you see what I'm saying?
No, I do see what you're saying.
And there is some research behind this, which is it's actually motivating when you find out your boss's salary is higher than yours. Like they've done studies where
that feels obvious.
Yeah, like
sure.
Vertical inequality where like your boss is making more money is great because you're like, oh, there's room for me to grow. Like I'm never going to make more money than my boss. So you want your boss to make as much money as possible. So there's that delta you can climb and you can make more money. When it's horizontal inequality and you find out your peers are making more than you, that could be extremely demoralizing. So I think later in it kind of matters where the wealth is or where the money is when it comes to you showing up motivated at work.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is like too much of an aside, but I think there's two ways this could go. If you're a good boss and you're making a lot more, it's like, wow, this is an opportunity for me to continue to prove myself and grow and get promoted and blah, blah, blah. If you're making a lot and you're a shitty boss, I'm like, you're making that much more than me and I'm doing all the work.
Totally. It can backfire.
That could be so demotivating. I would be like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
But if you're doing a ton of work and it's like, it's an aspirational relationship. I want to be like you. I want to, do the things that you're doing and be like you, then sure.
There's also this, it goes to like the kind of networking angle of this and like the circles that you run in based on your wealth or other kind of status signals. There is like a benefit in maybe material ways, maybe marginal ways of like of the person running a company being in those circles. Like if they are spending a lot of money to join some social club somewhere, but like they're running into other people who they can do business with, that does help the company. And so it is this weird thing where like there obviously is like these like extra benefits and to the business, to that person for having money in order to get into these places in the first place. And if you don't have access to that, like, is that hurting the business? You kind of expect the person running the company to like be able to get into those places because they kind of need to for business sake.
Yeah, it's like wealth is access, and the higher up you are, the more access you want in order to like move the business forward. I guess I see that.
Yeah. And I mean, I also think that is like somewhat of a kind of network tip, which is like your network does surface a lot of opportunities. And so, focusing on that element of career development can yield a lot of positive dividends.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of other ways that, wealth can be perceived besides being part of the fancy things and wearing the Rolex and whatever. You going on big vacations, having your kids be at super expensive private schools, whatever, all that stuff, which we didn't touch on. But do you have any like last takes about wealth and status in the workplace?
Someone should give us more money. Sponsors,
let us be super wealthy, and then we'll tell you from the other side.
I can't speak from personal experience on what it's like to be super wealthy. So if someone wants to allow me the opportunity to do that, I will gladly do it, and I will report back to you fine people. No, I mean, it's a really interesting topic. I think it's a sensitive topic. Like, I think the best thing is, again, like, try to let people show up as authentically as possible and, not to be like a children's book, but like judge them for like actually who they are and get to know them. And then, I think just understanding in general the unwritten rules of wealth as you go through your career is helpful, whether you follow them or not. Again, like that's up to you. But I think understanding the context that you are operating in is always really important.
Okay, love that. Should we go to Per My Last Policy?
Per My Last Policy, we're here. One of my favorite segments. So Per My Last Policy is a segment where Kaila and I pick one policy that we think should be implemented across businesses everywhere in the world.
Yeah. Should we?
And someone should let us do this.
Yeah. This is for fun only.
We got to get in front of the UN and present these.
Let's hear it.
Okay, mine is. This was a couple months ago. You remember the McDonald's CEO who ate a McDonald's burger and it went viral?
Yeah.
Because it seemed like he didn't like the product. My take is like, if anyone that works at any company, you should have to like use their products like an obsessive amount. Like if you,
I think they call that dog fooding.
yes, like if you work at Best Buy, like I want everything in your house to be you bought at Best Buy. You work at Morning Brew, I'm like, you better be reading all of these newsletters every single day. I want to see more dog fooding. I think that would be fun. You work at H&M, I'm like, every outfit. H&M.
Yeah, you have to at least like shop there every so often. And fun fact, I believe DoorDash does this, where every quarter they're required to work one like 2 or 3 hour shift, every single employee, so that you're remembering like what it is that the product is, interacting with customers, getting a firsthand look at what it's like to be a driver. I actually really like that.
There we go.
So that's cool. That's fun.
Policy check.
Yeah. Okay, so mine is slightly less helpful. Which is, I think we need to bring back cringe millennial perks.
Okay, say more.
I think that we were too hard on the pool tables, the nap pods, the foosball tables, the pizza parties. And I think we should get fair pay and a pizza party.
I like it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the early 2010s, let's be cringe. Maybe not the work as a family stuff, but all the benefits of that.
The beer taps.
Yes.
Ping pong tables.
Yes.
I hear what you're saying. I love this policy. You know, obviously the expression, threw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
I think we threw the beer pong out with like the cocaine.
Yeah.
Like,
no,
there was like this like party, like we're all family, stay out late. And then just bad shit happened and we threw it all out. The bad stuff had to go. But we can't. Someone go get the ping pong table and bring it back.
It's cross-functional interaction.
Yeah.
If I play ping pong with Macy once a week.
You should be able to expense it.
Yeah. So gonna go to Spin and do that.
I like it. We got to talk to our HR team.
I think so.
If you have a policy you think should be implemented across the entire world, lots of power. With great power comes great responsibility, and comes with our email address per my last email at morningbrew.com. Let us know what your policy is. Let us know your thoughts about wealth at work, things you've experienced. We'd love to hear them. We just love hearing from you all. And while you're at it, Spotify, 5 stars. Thank you. We're so close to 400 reviews. We might be at 400 when this episode comes out. Don't stop. Keep going to 500. It helps other people discover the show, and it gives Kaila and I some warm and fuzzies.
Yeah, we love warm and fuzzies.
We like it.
Yeah.
Should we roll the credits?
Let's do it.
Our producer is Michaela Heck.
Our technical director is Yuchana Ogu.
Kelsey Jones is our audio engineer.
And our president is Devin Emery.
This show is a production of Morning Brew.
Thanks for listening, and we'll get wealthy with you next week.